afternoon, everyone. Once again, my name is Cromwel Burgos, and Miljan said something about questions and all that. I can post every slide, and then we can discuss if you have questions, or maybe some learning. I only have a few slides, so it's not going to be it's going to be taking time. So I picked this title, Agility in Construction, because construction is very rigid. In the last 20 years, uh, this has been our journey to how do we adapt to the ever-changing demands of the client. So through the years, I've been working on healthcare projects, and recently uh, decided maybe I take the formal training, and because I developed this passion of uh, trying to help people and contribute to our team, and um, now I'm trying to formalize in the training, and said wonder if I take the Scrum Master uh, training, and that's how I met Milhan. So anyway, I changed my career recently from construction to product manager. So uh, I used to work with a lot of big healthcare projects, and last year I've decided I'm going to take on more of a. I like problem solving, and I think it really suits my curiosity. So being a product manager. So today we're going to talk about a little bit introduction of just the problem statement, and then what we do and how we do it is our focus. And feel free to chime in, okay, in the as we move through the slides. So this is our company. I'm just gonna do a quick plug. Our company is called Clark Pacific, and we manufacture and do construction. So we have architects, engineers, and we control the entire chain, especially on general contracting projects focused right now on parking garages and offices. So this is the Apple campus. We supplied the most of the structure and the flooring and the ceiling and the stairs of this campus. This is the biggest uh, pre-manufactured building in the world. So including the parking garage. So this is Stanford down below. So that's the product that we supplied in an Apple. Uh, and these are some of our facade products, our exterior. So it includes glass and glazing and all this. So just want to let you know what we do. And this is where we're located in California, Adelanto, Fontana, and Woodland. So we have about 300 acres of facility. And today I'm gonna borrow some things that I've learned the last 15 years. So I started on Lean Construction Institute, and these two guys are our heroes. This is Glenn Ballard and Greg Howell. They started what we call the last planner system, which is a Kanban system, and that's what we use in construction to expose work and create some sort of reliability in what we do. So, um, and of course the Scrum Guide. And I really started my Lean journey using the Toyota way. So that's when I found Lean is through that. So anyway, so construction, we deal with a lot of waterfall planning. So what I'm showing here is one of the most famous software in construction is called P6. So Primavera has a software that would give you as much detail as you can for so many years, right? And that is when the problem starts. When we're looking at all these tasks, and we in construction we like to think that we know everything in the beginning, and so we connect all the tasks and we create. Okay, if that's the major milestone, that's the when the project needs to be turned over, right? We create all these other milestones and some mini milestones, and then our assumption is if we hit that mini milestone, we'll hit the other bigger milestones, and then we'll hit the big milestone, right? And in hospitals in California, we're talking about, including construction, we're talking about 8 to 10 years. And I'm talking big projects. I'm always in big campuses, so because it's a sequence of work that we do. So that that 10 years is really I mean, you can't predict, right? And so as we're planning and trying to ask reliability from a lot of people, buffers are created, and so that is when uh, this unnecessary buffer and being rigid comes into play. So how do we counter this? So first, focus on respect for people, and that means aligning everybody, people's strengths first. So we'll look at Strengths Finder, and it depends on what you use. Just try to align people's strengths, and then align with the values of each company. Because in construction, we have different companies working together. We have different uh, culture, different background. So we're trying to align to the goals of the project. So there's things that you see, which are our practices, but first we focus on the things we don't see. So like mindset and our beliefs and our values. And then the third thing is uh, focusing on the goals of the project. So we look at our personal goals, company goals, and the project goals, and try to align the goals. So we call that condition satisfaction. So some would just write it on the wall. Some would create posters. In our case, this is Bluebeam, and sometimes I do just write it on the wall and then we check on it. But something we can measure, right? And something that becomes our almost our work agreement. That we this is how we do it. This is what the things that we're gonna. Uh, 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 it's your guiding light, right, for the project. So I don't know if anybody has any comment or questions or any takeaways, one word takeaway on this before I move to the next slide. So the next thing is exposing the work. So I'm gonna take a little bit time here to explain how we do this. So this is a Kanban board, and the work comes in from right to left. So uh, I tried to put some bubbles here on the problem, right? So in the beginning, when we started, this is one of our uh, uh, projects. You can see that each of these are all different projects. So each color of the card is a project. So in this case, there's probably I don't know a dozen or so different projects that we're trying to align, and you can see the work bunching up. Those are the milestones when all the projects need something big. And so what we're doing is uh, first, again, back to respect for people, avoiding overburdening our people. We're trying to level the work by looking at our capacity. So just uh, what we can do at a certain time frame, and uh, this also allows people to open up, right? Hey, I need help, because you can see in some of the lanes there's a lot of cards, and each of the cards are different colors. That means that that team is dealing with. So like in the case here of the middle team, you got 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 almost 10 different projects that they're managing. So once we expose that, it allows that uh, something that they can now ask for help, or we see that they need help. The other thing is leveling work and managing capacity. So from things that are bunching up, projects that are bunching up, to now aligning the projects and trying to make a decision together, uh, trying to negotiate what is, because everything's priority. So if you look at the swim lanes, the topmost swim lane are the milestones, and they're all prioritized. So it's like, what is now the order of the priority is now the discussion. The other thing that we uh, we see the benefit is focus, and you can see that this one person here pointing to a card, everybody is in alignment with what that person is thinking, and why that card or why that project is more important than the rest. um, and we have some rules we put in place, just so we're very sure that, hey, the work is the work is done at the amount and the size that it's supposed to be done, and who owns the work. So we this is prior to COVID. We use post-its, and so we divide that into 5 different uh, categories. There's the customer. So the message, the thing is, the thing that we focus on is, don't do anything without a customer. So if this space is blank, the customer's field is blank, then that means don't do anything. You don't have a customer. The other field in the middle is the person doing the work. So we call that the performer, the provider, and then the date when that performer made the commitment of the task, which is in the middle, right? And then the constraint. What is the constraint so that you can deliver the task? So I need this constraint so that I can deliver the task. So that's the conversation. And then we encourage people to speak, clarify and inquire. Construction, we're we're very we like to tell people what to do, and there's a lot of experts, and that creates a lot of problems because
I don't think that's just construction.
right. So um, everybody loves to tell people what to do. So we try to curtail that by teaching people to talk to each other. And so in this case where we give them courage, right, to speak by having a framework of how we talk to each other. So the requester would say, hey, or the customer would say, will you do this for me? And the provider or the people performing the work would look at that chunk of work and then make inquiry, right? So the clarification will start. So it's a yes or a yes if. There's no such thing as no. It's yes if I can have this. Yes, I can give that if I have this. And the provider, who is the performer, will then say, I promise I can do that. This is what we call the reliable promise. And then after a while, 2 days, 3 days, or a week, or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, whatever that sprint is, declare it's done. So we cross out the card. So the the person performing the work would cross it out from top left to bottom right, and then the customer would say yes, I agree that it's done, and the customer would cross it out from top right to bottom left. That means that, and then the thank you, and then the cycle continues. So uh, I don't know if you have any questions here, but the way we're looking at this board is we step back, and if the cards are all straight, meaning they are all the task has been committed if the cards are straight. So in this case, if you look at the first board, there's a lot of cards that are tilted, and it looks in chaos, right? Meaning there's not a lot of commitment here. There's no reliability on this. This will slide. Definitely, this will slide. And then if you start to see a lane that is all straight and everything is, all the cards are, it looks in order, that means that's a good month, or that's a good week, right? Because uh, it's not in chaos. So that's one of the visual cues that we look at. We look at colors. Like one color would dominate the board for 4, 5, 6 weeks, and that is the priority because everybody is focusing on that. So um, and then we focus
Just
on.
before you move on, like how do you define customer? So you're talking about the customer. How who's customer for you here?
So it depends. I simplify it on my team and saying the next process, right? So there's an external customer and then there's internal customers. So if a customer for us, really for the company, the customer are, let's say, the patients and the students, right? So we start thinking about the a persona, right? So like what does the maintenance guy that will maintain the facility, that is really the ultimate customer. But during the work, we just simplify it as the next process. That's your customer. So if it, and it has to be a specific name. So let's say an electrical designer would ask some because they'll design the sizes of the equipment. uh, they'll be waiting for the mechanical guys. And the way we do it in construction is we will say, yeah, you'll have it in 3 weeks. Like, no. What are you gonna do in the 3 weeks? Because if the building is 10 stories, I don't need the entire 10 stories. I just need the information on the first floor. So we're now trying to batch small size chunk to work. I'll talk about that in the next slide, but then in that card the name is there, right? Like if the customer is electrical and the name is uh, uh, Joe, Joe's name is in the card. So two people actually are interacting. Did that is that that clear
Yeah,
up?
I mean, I think
Okay.
it's almost like you're focusing and you're like service oriented. Like we even it doesn't matter if it's internal or external customer. So yeah, that really is it for me. But also just to maybe just encourage people to ask questions. If it's easier for you to type in the question in the chat window, you can do it there, and then I'll bring it up for Chrome, whatever is easier for you. So if you have questions, you can do it that way too. But yeah, thank you, Chrome. That answers my question.
All right. And then this is our company board. So our company, we have the product flows from our sales, BD, business development, to marketing, to our estimating, to our architects, to our uh, 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 manufacturing, engineering, and then field. And then, so we always want to focus in our values. So the way we're setting up the board is our milestones are aligned with our values and goals. So we just put that physically, visually on the board, right, to align everybody so that everybody knows their contribution to the goal of the company. So it's just a very simple way of aligning um, our 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 work with the goal of the company.
I had a couple questions. So, like, do you have variable size projects that you have, and
Yes.
then how do you go about from an estimation, right? So, in the construction business, I'm assuming you got to figure out what's your projected cost going to be, and then kind of staying within certain boundaries, and how you manage that, or is that something you got to touch on in another slide?
We can touch it here.
Okay.
So our company, we have about 15, 18 estimators. And so they have, when we instituted the Scrum, we actually went back and looked at the steps in how they do things. It's actually 90 different steps, right? So what we do is we look at the size of the work and the where the phase of the project. So uh, if the project is still in budgetary phase, where they just need high level rough order magnitude, there's like 12 steps. And if and so that's what we put in the board, because some projects are really detailed, right? When they want the detailed estimate, and some projects are still in the we need to study this, we need to study that. So it depends. There's like five phases in our estimating, and depending on the work, we pull from the list of things, and that's our backlog work, and then we just spread that through the system. So I don't know if that answered your question.
I think it did. Yeah, just trying to get a feel for how it sounds like you have people that kind of estimate, and then you get into a case where you pull based on capacity, but you've got some ideas about based on the nature of the work and what's being asked. You can always figure out what at least rough costs will be and estimates, and then do you refine those as you go? I guess I'm trying to understand that a little bit.
Yes, we
Okay.
refine the estimate as we go. So because there's always that back and forth, we learn more, right, as we move through the chain, and from there we can start putting a lot of details. Uh,
So, so Crom, like just from a traditional project management, you don't really have a baseline what you typically do with the traditional project. Essentially, you're saying it's more of an inspect and adapt, where you're always trying to get better and more confidence in your estimates.
right. And I want to clarify this, and I think I've answered an estimate that is the cost of the project, right? Because there's also estimate of effort, and maybe we'll talk about that later. But Dave, I don't know if that answered your question.
No, I
Was it
was
a
trying to
money
drive at
question?
the overall cost of the project and how you managing that from the company perspective, and then as you engage with the team and various players in the
Right.
value
We
stream. Yeah.
we we, we use target what we call target value delivery. So target value we set, like, so the owner, if you're an owner, you'd say, hey, I have a certain money in my pocket, and that money is all I have, and we'll say, okay, what do you what's the purpose of this project? And you'll say, I want to be able to do this, 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 and this. Okay, with the money you have, and when I say with the money you have, it includes everything: design, permits, uh, what we call the soft cost, the equipment we buy, the refrigerators, whatever you have, right? So you have a certain money, and then we say, okay, we'll take that out, and then we spread the money first, and based on our experience, hey, this might be this, this, and that, and then we target the cost just using innovation. So we say, if you only have so much money, here's what we can deliver. And so the thing with construction is, there's two big parts. There's the pre-construction and design, and then there's the construction. So in software development, I can relate to, you're developing the software, and then you're pushing it to production. So when you push it to production, that's our construction portion. So it's not very agile in that sense, because now you're building, right? There's still some, we use agility in managing changes, but in design is where really this is applicable like software. So because you can actually, you can manage a fixed resource, which is money, and you can give the whoever your customer is with what, just by looking at what function are they looking for, what purpose, what are important to them, and then that's how we just manage that. In I don't know if that
No, no,
answered
thank
your
you.
question.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, thank you.
Okay. So third is adapt the framework. So in this case, in construction, I started with Last Planner. So the last 10, 12 years, I've been doing Last Planner. The last 5 years is when I start doing Scrum. And I learned that uh, Scrum is in when you start iterating things, especially in design, right? So in Last Planner is just 5 conversations, what we should be doing, what we can do on a high level, and that what we can do in the next 6 weeks. And then the fourth conversation is what we will do, and that's just look ahead, the weekly work, and then what did we do, the learning cycle. So the most important thing is the should and the can, because that sets the priority of the project. It gives you like the effectiveness of your plan, right? It's the right thing to do. So we start with that. Uh,
Like we were talking about, if you go to previous slide, it's almost like the Kanban board when you start with the backlog of should and then you move to did. Sorry, it's the last planner framework.
right, right.
But the way that Crom explained it to me, it's, it moves from should to did, and that's kind of how things move in Kanban, from to do to done in a way.
Right. Thank you, Milan. And then we start to have the last again last planner in target value delivery are two. It's like two medicine, right? You have to take it so that you get cured with your sickness, and you have to take both. And so there's the planning aspect, and then there's the value delivery aspect. So in the value delivery aspect, we group different teams, and the focus is the project. So this visual is my product. It's called Clark Park. So I'm in the middle. Everybody's supporting me, and I deal with the external customer, and we have a product owner, and that product owner will be in every development team. So as they're trying to bring value to the product. So that's how we look at it. And then just managing handoff, right? So using Kanban. So this is the Kanban board, and it flows from right to left. So work is the backlog work is, you don't see it. It's the major milestone, and so those are the should, right? The diamonds are the should, and the 6 weeks is the things that we can do, that we know that we have the resource, that we know that we're ready to do it, and that is usually our sprint. And that 6 weeks, we're gonna focus on 1 week or 2 weeks. And some teams would focus 3 weeks. In design, you can focus 3 weeks because it is a lot of iteration. but in construction we usually focus 1 or 2 weeks. And so we line up the work, we choose work that are related, and then we check in every week and every day, and then we say, hey, these are the work that's done, and then so it's reverse. Uh, so here's a picture. We start with the should and can. Everybody, I'll call them the product owners, right? They own the swim lane, and then we set all the priorities. We the product owners would uh, discuss which one is most important the next 3, 4, 5 weeks, and then it goes to individual board. So from the swim lanes that are already lined up, it's like a mini PI planning. We line up all the projects, and uh, then it goes to individual Scrum boards or Kanban boards. So they look different for every team. So if you look at this one in the middle, that's our architects. Uh, it's just in chaos because they're very artistic. They don't care about how it looks. The next, this other board is very organized. That's estimating, and that's engineering, right? This other board's very organized. These are engineers and estimators, and you can see how organized in our architects. They just, and this is one office, by the way, and everything looks different. So they just take a post-it, big post-it paper, put some tape on it, and that's it. And we just check in. We go, hey, can you do this for me if it's not planned? And they'll just point to the board and say, where do you want me to do it? And it allows us to respect their time, right? Because it's like, oh, that's really overloaded. Okay, how about this? And then we start negotiating. So we just keep negotiating. And that's the agility I'm talking about, is because we don't have control in construction. It's hard to control. Uh, there's just a lot of things that we can't control, especially when the owners change their priorities. It affects the entire chain, and we have jurisdiction. We have different. California is like, it's like building another. It's another country. Uh, it's really it's just a lot of jurisdictional constraint. But anyway, I think David, want to go back to your question on cost, because this is one of our estimating boards, and you see the red tape. I should have had better pictures, but the red tapes are the phases, the different phases, rough order magnitude projects,
Okay.
and so they try to prioritize that, and then it's, yeah. So that's how they do it. Like uh, it's just one of those where prioritize the projects first, and then prioritize the smaller tasks, and then they put scores on these cards. So we're at the point now where, especially our estimating, that all the work is already standard effort. They know that that effort is 1, they know it's 2, they know it's 3, they know it's 8, and there's no 13s. They now learn to, oh, 13, we have to break it. What's 13? 5 and 8. Okay. What's 8? Right? 5 and 3. And so they start learning to so that work would flow quicker through the system.
So does that also mean, you mentioned standard work, right? So you're between the cost you're estimating and then the standardizing of the work, you have a pretty good handle on how much change you can accommodate, or what changes might introduce as well in terms of cost and effects on cost.
Especially our product.
Yeah.
Our
Okay.
product, yes. If it's outside of our product, so we deal with, sometimes our customer is the general contractor. Sometimes the customer is the owner, like the university. And if it's the university, we control the entire chain. So there's not a lot of problems there. It becomes problematic when we deal with another level, another layer. So our product is very predictable, but then outside of it, like now you're talking site work, now you're talking other things that goes into, let's say, my product. Uh, 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 but I look at my product as the entire solution, right? And it just happens that we're providing parts and pieces of parking garage. But yes, we can. We're very predictable in the exterior. side, glass and glazing, and structure, and yeah, our products, because we have standard pricing, and we coordinate. We have weekly meetings, so we instituted touch points to say, hey, production, what are you doing this week, so that estimating would know, and it's just constant, right? So it started with a lot of arguments, and now it's really one of the fun meetings where we now starting to align. We're now solving problems. Everybody now thinks that problems are good. Before we were trying to hide problems, and when we start doing Kanban, when everything's exposed, everybody is now okay, because the system eliminates blame, right? Because you can see it when you're no longer talking to each other. You're actually talking to the card, right? And you're pointing to the card. So it just eliminates blame. It really gets us tighter, more closer as a team. You can start hearing laughter when we're planning. I mean, it's just a lot of positive things. So.
Yeah. Bob has a question, Crom. How far ahead are you actually planning?
So we usually look at the entire project for the should. What are the things we need to hit, and then we look at a few months, and then we're very focused on when we can produce, because we have to align our production. So it's the entire project, whatever the duration of the project is, just high level, and then because there's a lot of planning. Again, it's the five conversation, right? There's the should, which is the entire 2 years or entire year, and then there's the phase planning, which is what are the phases that are connected. So that may be 3 months here, 3 months here, 3 months here, and then there's the can, which is the 6 weeks. So there's now levels of planning, and
So,
then will, yeah.
yeah. So that's very interesting. So how do you do scope management, scope creep? Is that flexible? Do you truly take an agile approach where you say, this is the money that we have and the customer is driving what we built and how we build with what we have? So do you have such thing as fixed scope and you're trying to work within that, or is there flexibility in scope?
So this is where construction is. I'm gonna answer it by saying depends on the contractual obligation. So if it is an integrated project delivery, meaning the client, the owner is working with us, right? And it's actually a type of contract, right? So integrated project. Then yes, we institute target value delivery, because the owner can go back and forth with us. I mean,
Exactly.
they're actually the key, right? But if it's a design, build, design, bid, build, meaning you're an owner, you're trying to save money, you hire a different designer, and you're trying to just assume a lot of things, and then you get us on board just to bid the project and all that. There's no control there, right? We got to be in the so we have to have a common understanding of the purpose of the project. And usually hospitals in California started this. Sutter, this is where I learned this, is the owner would hire us early, and then we're part of the team from programming all the way. And is that is what we do, is fixed fixed price, fixed, yeah.
Okay. Another question, and then we can move on. Anthony's asking, there's a couple of questions here, so I'll just break this into three questions. So how much estimation do you reveal to stakeholders? Is the
So
first.
I want to clarify that estimate, as far as money, the budget, it's for, if that's the question, it's just continuous for us. So we
Time.
have,
He's saying time, time more,
oh,
or
time. Okay. So for time, uh, it's really, so we're trying to look at, because we're very bad at estimating time. So we look at how much it take, and then learn from it, right? That this we just started this, where we try not to predict too much, and we know there's a set milestone, but then as we're moving through the chain, every week we're learning, and we're learning our ability to produce work. And so it's really it's a learning cycle for us. But we have standard. We based it usually on past project, just so we can see, right, if this is doable, or this is impossible, or this is how big of a challenge, right, as far as schedule.
Yeah.
But again, as far as our product, it's very predictable. We know that because we install using Flow, so tact, which is instead of pooling, we have tact time. And so when we say 3 months, it's really 3 months. When we say 2 months, we can really get it. It's easier for us because we understand we manufacture our product, so
Yeah.
we can really, there's a lot of control in our side. I make it sound easy, but it's really I mean, there's some challenges there, but it's compared to uh, traditional construction and all that. It's like an effort of one versus an effort of eight, right?
Yeah. 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 So okay, so that makes sense. Hopefully, Anthony, that makes sense to you. I know probably we didn't answer all of the sub questions, yes. So, and Mary, we can come back to Mary's asking, is there a critical path? And I think based on what you've said, critical path is always adjusting. So you always have a critical path, but I don't think you focus on.
There is a critical flow. So the funny part is I used to think that way, right? So and at the end, somebody will ask me, so what is the critical path? When the project is done, where's the critical path, right? It's you look at critical path just for analysis, like, okay, and then why? You ask why, and then suddenly you'll just find out that, oh, if that's the lead time, how fast can we deliver the first batch of work before, you know what I'm saying? Like instead of waiting for a big chunk of work,
Mhm.
uh, we create flow. So instead of saying, oh, when can this like there are cases where you cannot like structure would be delivered as one, because they have to hold each other and tie to each other, and they have to have a diaphragm, and they're one. You cannot piecemeal that. But the picture I've shown you here, show you a picture here where it's really, I think this will help with the question. Uh, so this building here, you can see a time lapse. So 1, 2, 3, 4. These are 4 big buildings. This is about 2.4 million square feet. You can see the time lapse because we build it by floor by area. So the last building here already has roofing. The other almost done with the last floor. See, it's a time lapse, and then you can see that also here where we build it by pieces. So when we're done, and then the people inside can work. So we provide the shell a piece at a time,
That's
right? So
really
it,
cool.
it, it really
That's,
flows. And I
yeah.
can pull the schedule on this. It really flows. It's just small chunks of work. It's not a waterfall.
But it's also, I'm assuming, as you're building, like for instance, with the Stanford example, you can move into one building or even into one room of that building and start using it, or one floor,
Exactly. So
and you're delivering
yep.
value. So, and that's what we talk about in software development. You know, how can we start realizing value early on, which
Right.
is, typically when you think about building development and construction, you're like, well, you can't move into the house until the whole house is done, right?
Wh-
And
wh-
this-
So that is where I'm gonna say. So that's why I picked the title Agility in Construction, because it's a little bit controversial if you really know agility, because
yeah,
you can't be agile in construction because there's inspection at the end, right?
yeah.
There's a permitting agency that will say you can occupy the building. So
Okay.
the customer definition has changed. Your agility is within the internal customer when
Okay.
you're building the building. But
Okay.
the external customer that really would use the building, they cannot even get in
Yeah.
without permit. So that's why I had a distinction at the beginning of, in design, yes, you can do a lot of agility. In construction, once the permit is approved, it it's used for This is what's killing construction: inspection, right? Instead of building the inspection within the system, it's the last thing you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I laugh because it's funny.
So
You
when you
suffer
talk
through
about
it.
an IPD project, would you be acting as the GC in that sense, and you would have subcontractors under you, or are you in a separate arrangement?
We would be the general contractor, and we love doing design build. So we'll have the architect, this integrated project delivered using a design build contract. We can do that. We can also use a full-on integrated contract, because there's a lot of different types of contracts. But yes, we have subs for now. We do sub out mechanical, electrical, and plumbing and all those kind of things. So our goal is, at the end, we'll control the whole chain. But that's still ways out. But yes, we will be dealing direct.
So Chrome, we have about half an hour left at most, probably. Like if we want to 25 minutes. Mary does have a question, so we'll come back to that. But I would say, you have more stuff to show. So let's go to that, and then maybe we can take some more questions.
No, I think it's one more slide. I just want to emphasize here one thing. Sometimes the work is just one person. So there's work in construction or design where only one person can do it, just probably because of knowledge and sometimes just a skill, right, or experience. So you can, what we do is create a personal Scrum board, so it's still exposed. So that's an example of a personal Scrum board. Um, and then built-in learning. So we're trying to use so I started with the respect for people in the beginning, things we don't see and things we see, right, like an iceberg. So learning, we approach learning the same way. So we look at the things we see are what we call in LCI, lean construction, as percent plan complete, and our velocity. So I look at that as, okay, you see that, you can learn from it, and you can adjust the work. Like this is a velocity chart where I remember this was 90 points. The average was 90 points every week, and some weeks it goes 150, some weeks it's 50, but the average uh, in the whole chain, because we can't predict, like when we're bidding projects and all that. This is a plan percent complete, and there's things you don't see, right? This is when, so in construction, we have a culture to just work fast and hard. And when you're behind, we just add ER on it, right? It's like, hey, I'm behind. Like, what's the problem? It's like, just work faster, just work harder, right? Instead, now we're changing into this knowledge-based system before you can work fast. So get people to be competent with the principles of Agile and values of Scrum. And so we have this backlog of learning that we can now insert if there's capacity. So if there's weeks that the work dips, we pull from the backlog of learning. Do you want to learn more about agile mindset? Do you want to learn more about uh, uh, empiricism, how you manage that? And so we just build that in the system. Uh, and then we learn to work with each other. We learn to create rules. So this is not very clear, but if you can see my cursor, there's a star that says out of office. So every card that has a star, that person is out of office. If it's red fonts, you can't read it, but it says unplanned work. So if it's a red font in the card, it's a late request. And so if you're the Scrum Master, you walk in there, and I've created a group of what we call the internal Scrum Masters. So it's like 5 or 6 people that now are teachers and trying to manage the process. We just look at the board, and if there's a lot of red fonts, then like, what's going on, right? And so we say, hey, then somebody would say, well, this becomes priority because this. Okay, how can we learn from that? And so that's just the learning cycle, is to track it. And then when the card moves, uh, we actually put a hash we actually mark the card that move. So if it moves one time, it's just one hash, and then second time, twice. By the third time, that's when we talk about it. It's like, why did it now move three times? Because sometimes the first time is like, oh, it's just lack of estimate, lack of the ability to estimate. That's new work. We don't react right away. We react when it's, because sometimes like, why is that there? Maybe that's not priority because you keep pushing it, right? So I don't know. Any questions here? Any comments?
Just once you get into construction, obviously weather conditions, supply chains, whatever, put you behind schedule. Do you have any particular techniques for recovery planning that now, like you said, other than just working harder and working faster?
it's it's really just the main thing is like what we talked in the before, like number two, expose the work, and then from there get everybody together, because you're gonna be behind. So I have a team that they were behind 6 weeks, and I was talking to them. It's like, what's going on? The the schedule is in their computer. The to-do list is in the email. I mean, it's just all over the place. So it's like, okay, get some stickies. All right, what are you thinking you're gonna do this week? And they just start writing. And just put it on the wall, and then suddenly it's a big wall with a lot of stickies. And it was like, okay. And then I remember this team because they were the fastest team that really adapted the system. Uh, the first week they recovered 1 week, and they just start pulling from the succeeding weeks, because you can now see the work. So when you get done with the bunch of stickies over here, you can now start pulling from. So this is really becoming a real pull system. And the second week they recovered the 2 weeks. Anyway, after 6 weeks they were on track. So it's really just you gotta just expose the work, because there's a lot of assumptions in construction. There's a lot of experts, and we love to pull from our assumptions on the previous projects that we have, right? So, oh, I did that in the other project, it worked really well, I'll do it here, and then it creates chaos. Because you want to align workflow. Even if you're behind, you want to align workflow, because if not, you're still not going to go faster. So Adam, I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes, it does. Yep, thanks.
It's a very simple answer, but it solves a lot of my problems, exposing the work.
So it's almost like exposing the bottlenecks, exposing the work, and then really
Right.
focusing on flow, right? That's
Right. Yeah. So the problem with thinking is we don't see what people think, right? So that's just that's the first thing I'll do is just focus on that, and maybe we touched that over here, and how and where do I start? So I've learned through the years that you just start where you are, right? And usually you start when there's a problem. And Adam, when you're behind, it's a good opportunity to start. And so I don't know why I get excited when we're behind, because it's like COVID, right? People don't have a choice, right? They don't have a choice. You got to do it. Like, okay, now we're behind. Okay, I have a medicine. You want to take it? And so the medicine is
sense of
just exposing the
urgency,
work.
you know?
Huh?
Sense of urgency,
So,
great sense of urgency.
right, yeah, it creates sense of urgency. I'm lucky to be supported by top management, though. So in this recent company, so it's easier. But on other projects, so and then learn by doing. So here's an example. This one guy, one board. This is a personal board that became like a 2 or 3 people board. But this person was just asking what I'm doing on the other team, and I said, hey, just show up Monday, and then this time, and then he started learning, and he created his board. Right? He just started. It just started right away, and then I constantly just check on him, and it's funny because he was surrounded with a lot of people, and he's the only one with the board, and people would now look at this board and say, "Oh, so can you do this?" And everybody starts negotiating within that board. Uh, there's also this other board here. This is a real some sort of a real Scrum board. There's that to do, doing done. So this is a project site, and this is just how we manage submittals. Again, behind, how do we do it? Uh, Submittals and RFIs and requests for information, all that. And this is one of the bigger groups that I started. Again, a problem arise. three people started. We create a board, and then we say, hey, who's gonna sign the contract? Oh, it's Aaron. Oh, let's create a lane for Aaron. And so we started creating from 3 lanes to like 18 or 20 lanes. And so when you start from where you are, you start pulling other people, and then people will just see the benefit, and then start to work with everybody. Uh, Best practice. So a lot of projects right now are doing this. The last 5 years, this has really taken traction. LCI has been when lean construction has been it started in mid 90s, and now it's really taking traction. So it could be you can implement that in the beginning, best practice, and then or most of the owners in hospital construction is now requiring this. And on bigger projects, we usually do a formal onboarding. We play games. We can buy this at LCI. They have a lot of game kits, and then you can onboard something about reliability and all that, and then how work gets done type thing. So, and if there's any questions, any comments.
That's very similar to at least what we've seen in Agile or within software where we train teams and take them through boot camps. There are 3 questions here, Crom,
Okay.
from Mary, Lori, and Brock. Is this a good time to ask them or?
Yeah. This is the last slide, I think.
Okay.
Check. Yeah, that's the last slide.
Okay, so Mary, I believe, sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. She said, could you please speak more about value? How is value defined and who defines the value?
So it's always the, so we look at, so on a project, there's important values that the owner would share, right? So I'll give an example. It's easier for me to talk about examples. So I had a hospital project, and the client was very focused on having the hospital as part of internship. So it becomes one of the values of the hospital is education, right? And then second, sustainability. And then they had 2 definitions of sustainability. They had sustainability of like in environment, in sustainability, and then finance, right? Financial sustainability, meaning cash flow. So now you can align your cash flow and how you develop the plan and build the project. Because if you're too fast and you need 20 million, 30 million a month, that's really fast, right? A $10 million billing on a project is really fast, right? And that I'm talking about 3, 4, 5 years ago, right? Because it just cost of money. But uh, value is defined by the customer. So we do our best to extract that in the beginning, and then from there we use that as part of our conditions of satisfaction. And then the team creates its own culture where we have our own values, and the trick is to align the values.
Mm-hmm.
And then the shortcut is just to take the project and draw a circle, put the project in the middle, and then let's surround the project, right? That's just really a very good visual way of looking at it. So it becomes the project is the focus, not your company. Because if it's our project, Clark Pacific, if we're contracted direct to the owner, it's not a problem. But when we're contracted and we're a part of uh, 2 or 3 or 4 entities where the architect is a partner, they're not, because the owner would hire their own architect, and architects, we have to respect their work because they have a different, they're a customer, right? So we have, there's a lot of customers. So the designers are also customers. So if their goal is uh, get this, it's got to have more light, and it's got to have aesthetics that are matching that building or this that. So the way we do that is we just look at the customer, we write it on the wall, and then we try to see if we can align all the values. I don't know if that answered the question.
So let us
Yeah.
know either by typing. Yeah. Okay.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Lori and Cadence have similar question about continuous improvement. So Lori's question is, do you have a sense of how well you and the teams have improved in delivery, given the learnings from project to project? And then similar here from Cadence is, do you hold retrospectives? If so, with what frequency?
Right. So thank you for the question. Let me see if I can pull something here that would show the retrospective. Yes, the answer retrospective is yes. We do learn, right? We look at like this board here. You can see the retrospective down below. Stop doing, keep doing, start doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that happens every. Uh, so the thing with Last Planner and Kanban is almost continuous delivery, while Scrum are sprints, and we're trying to put sprints in Kanban. And so that sprint is 3 weeks. So uh, some teams we do it 3 weeks, some for some monthly, right? So it's just the thing. And then from here, that's the velocity 90 and 76. Um, so that's that. Yes, we do retrospective. As far as learning, uh, this is a graph of just the velocity, right? That the team can do. But again, we're very dependent from outside forces. We cannot. It's still hard for us to control the outside chain. So we try as much as we can to match the chain. But as far as learning, we started. I have a lot of stories about gaining velocity. People thanking. Uh, I mean, it's just talk about people overburdening the team, and when you start exposing the work, you can start lining up the work. You can start gaining speed, because now when you put the work in a chunk, in a manageable chunk. So like this team here, they measure specifically this team that I work with in the past, they measure their chunk of work one no more than 2 cards a day. Meaning, if you're done, you can actually pull from the other lanes, from the other people, right? So there's no more. Everybody is aligning their work. So that's how we gain speed and capacity, is eliminating uh, the overlaps, eliminating waiting. The other thing is we're gaining speed through defining the work. So there's 3 things. If you're clarifying, you're slowing down, right? So there's 3 C's that I always like talk to the guys. If you're making correction, because you're focused on quality, and we forgot to talk about that here, but quality is the main focus. So when you make a correction, you're slowing down. So avoid correction, avoid clarification, do it right away. When you receive the work, make sure that you understand the definition of done. And then the third thing is when you're so correcting, clarifying, and what was my 3? There's a third C. Uh, uh, anyway, just even just 2 things, right? You can see that you can avoid defective work. Uh, uh,
Probably also always focusing on the customer, right? If you do those things and you always
right.
focus on the customer, that could be your third C, because that's your guiding. Yeah. So
I think it's confusion. When people are confused,
yeah.
that's how I use confusion, correction, and so this is a board that has the faces of the estimates, right? Yeah. So I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, let
So
us know in the text box if it did or if it didn't, if you'd like to elaborate more. Brock has a question on, just a second here. Do you often bring in subcontractors into your meetings for planning these flow boards to see their expectations?
Yes, yes. It's always, so why we call it, so LPS is the last planner system. So last planner is the person that's doing the work. So if it's the electrical contractor, we in construction, we'd like to have the foreman, because the foreman knows the work. You're going where the work is. If it in design, we'd like to have the person that really knows the work. So yes, the answer is absolutely yes. It's a requirement.
Yeah, great. Um, Crom, I have a question. When going back to the product owners, you being the product manager and chief product owner, like what is your relationship between you and the chief product owner there? So you're in the middle. Who's typically playing the chief product owner role?
So this is our company. So PM is it's not project manager, it's product manager.
Product manager, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to pull up something here that we so we have a we have marketing. So that's our product marketing manager, and I'm in the middle as a product manager, and then we have our chief product owner, right? So the product owner in engineering would be the person that sets the priority, right? He understands the vision. He understands, just like the product manager, and but he's very technical.
Yeah.
So as a myself, I'm not very technical, but I deal with the entire chain. So I work with our manufacturing, I work with our construction group, work with our architecture group, a whole chain, so that the product can flow through the chain. So understanding sales and what the customers are saying about our product, what the customers are buying, that's where I work with our product marketing managers.
Yes.
So that's the distinction. Is a product manager is responsible for the entire uh, 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 life of the product, and at the same time the business case of the product, right? So that's the responsibility. In our case, our product owners are very technical, but they set the priority of work in their respective. Their product is might be a design. Their product might be the beams or the columns, or it might be a calculation.
Yeah.
So we try to productize everything.
So how, like, in Agile, or at least, in Scrum, we have cross-functional teams. And this seems like it's more like a cross-functional product, but like how would you explain, and if you are doing anything to promote cross-functionality?
So if you look at the a cross-functional team would be like, say, if I go outside our company, right?
Mhm.
We would set a project. I'm trying to look for another graphic here, but let's say you have a structures group, right? A structural group. The structural group would have an electrical representative, or a mechanical plumbing representative, because as you're analyzing the structure, it's gonna affect a lot of things.
Mhm.
And if you're looking at your if you have an interior, we call it an interior cluster group, right? So that the interior cluster group would manage the interior design, but then the drywaller is part of that. The architect is part of that. The architect is in a project. There's always a representative of the architect. So a cluster group is composed of different disciplines, so that when they make a decision, they can look at the whole thing. They have estimators and all that, and then we have what we call, if in your world, it's probably the scrum of scrums. Then all the leaders come together on a weekly basis and coordinate work. We call it
Mhm.
the connected decisions. I don't have the pictures here, but it's pretty much like this picture, this graphic, but instead of development uh, uh, teams, it's a cluster group with different, like the biggest cluster group would for us would be a mechanical, electrical, plumbing group, because there's gonna be representation from other
Area.
other areas, and then we also have a production cluster. So the production cluster sets the vision of how the project would flow. They usually deals with the other group so that they don't design something that will disrupt the flow in construction, right? We're always focused on that your customer is the downstream, right? So it'll be easier. That's why we do prefabrication, we do modularized construction, things like that. So
Very interesting. What about, we talk about at least, changing mindset and culture, then also changing the structure of governance. How much did you have to change here, even the roles, like introducing product on Scrum Master? How much structural and architectural change when it comes to governance within the company did you have to do?
so it was a journey of about so started in November, so November last year, and I had a meeting today, and everybody is just set up now. There's we have to change the structure from a higher, because we need efficiency, because the company used to be 30 million, now it's like 300.
Yeah.
So we have to scale up, so there needs to be efficiency, and so within the efficiency it created rigidity. So creating a secondary system like what we're doing, visual management and doing Scrum, it doesn't really, because our engineering is, they call it the functional groups. They divide themselves into function, but because of Scrum
Yeah.
and visual management, they can still collaborate.
Yeah.
The key is really exposing things,
Yeah.
right? So as far as formally changing the structure of the company, we do verticals. So
Yeah.
we split the company into three verticals. One is focus on emerging markets, big projects from 100 million to right now we have an 800 million project. That's one vertical. And then a vertical in my vertical, which is parking and general contracting. And then another vertical for glass and facade and all exterior.
So those
And
are
then
different product lines, and typically, like in
yeah,
value streams, those would be kind of horizontal ways of looking at things. You're just calling them
you
vertical.
can, yeah, you can, yeah, you can shift it and it becomes a train,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So instead of verticals, yes. So vertical, the product flows like this.
Yeah,
If you turn it at 90 degrees, then it flows that way.
yeah, that's very cool. Other questions, thoughts for Crom?
Oh, Milan, I did just want to mention, I'm actually on the project management side of more design and construction. And for the folks here in Maine, the new hospital in Augusta that opened in 2013 was delivered under an integrated project delivery method, which really matches up to a lot of what Crom has, shown during this. And that's really important in construction because typically you have a lot of subcontractors. Crom's company is very integrated and they offer a lot of services. And in Augusta, everybody was a subcontractor. So the contractual arrangement is really, really important to be able to actually get people involved early and then into kind of the lean and agile system. I would say you can be lean in construction on any job by working well together, but you can't be agile unless everybody's really aligned to the same goal.
Right.
And that kind of typically takes the same contract type, because otherwise everybody's got their own business that they're watching out for at the same time that they're working on your project.
Right. Thank you for that, Adam. That's why you align the goals in the beginning right away. Because if you don't have to do anything, if you just do this, I think you're gonna be way better off compared to everybody's just looking out. It's a lot of silos because we we uh, we give we give we will require something that the system cannot support, right? So the system is created. It's very adversarial. So I was working. Let me tell you the story really quick. So I used to work with this other company. Really, one of the uh, uh, one of the best probably contractors here in California, and one of the superintendent, just so he can have reliability. It come to a point where we back charge the owner, just so they will make decisions. And so every week he'll just show, hey, you're delaying the project, you're delaying the project, you're delaying the project, because the cost of delay is the is probably the biggest thing in all of construction is cost of delay. And uh, it comes to a point where I was like, holy cow, like did that really happen? Back charging the owner, it, just so the system would flow.
Yeah, that's really good.
But with owners now these days, I would say more than half is really into integrating and making decisions timely and exposing the work and exposing those decisions, because the decisions, like when you're designing a building, right, the first thing is like a hospital. It's amazing where you have to decide on the bathrooms first before you can really move forward your decisions. Is your bathroom going to be on board, outboard, or inboard? Because that dictates how you design your patient room, and the patient room dictates how you design your floor. Are you going to have a racetrack? Are you going to have decentralized nurse stations? So the bathroom for everything, right? And then the second biggest thing is, uh, how do you distribute air? And Adam's laughing because he's probably lived through this. It's crazy when you're looking at and in California, it's like, oh, it's got to be 90 feet from the nurse station to that door, and you start to like, oh, now you're counting steps, now you're counting how's the medicine gonna flow, right? But all this starts in like deciding where you locate the bathroom, because
Yeah.
some patients would say privacy. Oh, that we need privacy, so the bathroom needs to be in the hallway. Oh, and but it's like, okay, but then the architect will say, well, really we gotta, so it is just a lot of customers, right, to please. So
That's great. And I know Chrome has a meeting in 10 minutes, and I told him that I'll try to get him just a little bit of time so he can go to his next meeting. Anthony did have a question, and maybe we can just follow up via email, Anthony, about estimation. And maybe Chrome, if you can go to the last slide where your email is, and
yeah,
so people can take a
that's the most important thing, by the way.
uh,
That email. Anyway, yeah. What's the question? Estimation. Okay, so it's really, that was the hardest thing I need to teach. So I usually touch that when they already know how to chunk work, because it's hard. We're always, everybody say how many hours, right? It's always hours, and it's like, okay, yes, you can estimate using hours, but it's really relative sizes. So I start with talking about t-shirts and animals, and uh, starting to like, hey, if it's a chicken, it's a one. What is that in your work? That's really easy. You don't have to think. It may take 2 hours, but it's really easy. You have everything information you have. So, and then they start getting confused about effort and value. Oh, but I can deliver that value with this effort. It's like, no, 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 no. That is prioritization, right? When you prioritize, you look at value and effort, bang for the buck.
yeah.
But then if you're looking at just creating the, so that, well, that's why you prioritize first, and then you can put the effort. So I would start with t-shirt sizing. uh, I would I would I would just take a card and I would say, okay, if this is a 5, just right away, I'm not even gonna tell them anything, I'm just gonna say, if this is worth 5, is this other card worth 1? No, no,
Yeah.
no, 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 that's more than that. Is it double? Yeah, that's a
So
10. No, no, there's no 10. It's 8. So you
how
just
do
line them up. Right?
stakeholders understand that? So that's probably within the team, but like how, I think, part of Anthony's question here is, stakeholder understand.
Yeah, they want the whole thing, and they want it on June 30th, right? Well, you can have the whole thing maybe in July, roughly, or you can have something on June 30th, but maybe it's not everything you want. And I can do that with sales and marketing people, certainly. How do you do that when somebody is needs that construction done? And are you giving an exact date and trying to hit it every time, or are you letting them know that, hey, there's some risk, there's some complexity, we're going to get close to that date and we'll keep you updated? Do they get that? How do you work with people when you're not saying all the work is going to be done on one exact date?
Right. So owners would be very critical at opening date, right? Because there's a lot of preparation on that date. there's a lot of things that they wanna ribbon cutting and all that and whatever, like they do. So that date, we usually, come hell high water, we usually want to hit that date. And that's why this is the problem, because it creates a lot of overtime. It creates, we really want to hit that date, because if not, depending on your contract, you get hit by liquidated damages, right, and all those things. But uh, it's really visibility. But I'm going again to exposing things and visibility, so that you can see that 6 months from now, and the owner has a way of adjusting. Because if it's already 6 weeks or 2 months and they already invited everybody on something, and the equipment is coming, now they have to pay for storage, like all those kind of things. It's our first default. Our default is, it's that date is that date, right? And unless it's really integrated delivery where the owner really is working with us, that date fluctuates, but
Yeah.
it's not much. But I don't know if that answers your question. It's really hard in construction because you have a contract, and it depends on the contract. On a perfect world, like I work with Sutter Health here in Sacramento, the contract was cost plus fee with an incentive. They work with us. They were there every day. They were making decisions every day. The dates weren't, when we publish date, but sometimes we pull it, sometimes it slips, but everybody has the same understanding of the date. So I don't know if that answered your question. I answered it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Overall,
Okay.
in the past, I feel like, construction stuff, well, we didn't hit the date and we're going to keep working. Can you explain, like, not you have to explain it right now, but like, do you explain to your stakeholders, we follow this process, and it means there's a little bit of flexibility.
Exactly.
Thank you for telling me. Kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of shifting, it's not just in construction. A lot of, traditional project management that came mostly from construction and projects like that into software development, where we have exactly same things. So I think, at least reflecting on everything that Crom has said, in a way, visualize work, get the team and the culture and the mindset and buy-in early on. And start looking at the work, visualizing work to see the bottlenecks, to see where the flow is being impeded. And it sounds simple. It's hard.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Scrum helps out, right? So if I have to choose a value of Scrum other than respect for people, because that's like that's your main thing, right?
Yeah.
Is how you treat people. It actually increases your quality. We can prove that where I work. So, but the thing about focus, it's really just that is focus will allow you to really see those problems and constraints. And once you remove it, um, and it's hard to remove it without seeing it. So this thing about seeing things, it's really underrated. I mean, it's probably one thing that you just do and everything will fall in line.